Hello everyone, my name is Alex. Today we will be learning about the different operators that are inside Visual Basic, and also we will be learning about the if and else if statements and the select case statement. First of all, let's start with the arithmetic operators. So the arithmetic operators allow us to perform any mathematical calculation between any values that we give. For example, let's say the following. Let's say we have a which is equal to 10, b which is equal to 3, for example, and c which is equal to 5. We can use the function to put print to see the result of the different arithmetic operators that we are going to use. The first and easiest of all of them is addition. So if we write a plus b, it will give the addition of 10 plus 3, which is 13. As you can see, here is the result. Another arithmetic operator is subtraction. As you might have guessed, we can also do multiplication of two values, and we can do division. These are the basic arithmetic operators. Now we can go for a little more advanced arithmetic operators. We can, for example, have the power of, which is basically 10 to the power of 3, which gives 1000. We also have an arithmetic operator, which is written as the inverse of the division operator. This will give the whole value that we get in the result when dividing something. For example, in 10 divided by 3, it will give us 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and that's the whole integer that we get in the division. We have also a mod operator, which basically gives us the remainder of the division. In this case, 10 divided by 3, the remainder is 1. We execute the code, you see, 3 and 1. Okay, we have already seen all the possible arithmetic operators that we have. Let's now go to the next operators, which are the comparison operators. In the comparison operators as well, we are going to see the if statement, because normally you will use the comparison operators with an if statement to check for a condition and perform an action. Let's comment this code so it's no longer executed. A little trick: you can, for example, comment multiple lines of code by clicking this icon, which you can see it says comment block. Also, if you want to uncomment a block of text, you can use the one that is next to it, which is uncomment block. So let's go and see the if statement. If statement will check for a condition. If that condition is met, it will perform whatever is inside it. For example, we can do if a is equal to 10, then do whatever is inside here. The if condition always needs to have an end if statement. If not, Visual Basic will fail to run this code. For you to see, we can put, for example, at the block print, and we can tell him to tell us a message. For example, I am 10. If we now execute the code, as you can see, because a is equal to 10, we have entered here, and this part of the code has been executed. The if statement can also have inside it something called the else statement. Basically, what this will do is, if a is equal to 10, I will execute this. If not, I will do whatever is inside here. And let's say now that a, for example, is 15. As you can see, it entered this condition. This part of the code is not executed. Finally, for the if statement, we can also have multiple conditions inside it. Here we have one condition that if it's not met, it will execute this. But we can also do this. We get the else again. We can add if a equals 15, then do whatever inside here. So if now we execute the code, I'm 15, because a is equal to 15. So what the code is doing is first checking this case, and it says, oh, I'm not 10, let's go to the next scenario. It checks this and it says, oh yeah, I'm 15. And it executes this part of the code. Take into account that when using an if statement, all the conditions are checked in order. So if, for example, I had here a condition that was true, the code will be executed, and the rest of these scenarios won't be checked. Up until now, we have only seen one of the comparison operators, which is equal to. This tells Visual Basic that if a variable is equal to something, it can be a number, a string, or something else, it will perform the operation. So our first comparison operator is equal to. Let's see our next comparison operator. In this case, it's going to be greater than, and also less than. In here, now we are saying if a is greater than 10, do this, greater than 10. As you can see, because a is equal to 15, it's a value that is greater to 10, and this code is being executed. Now, let's check with the less than operator. "15 is greater than 10. So basically, when we check for this condition, it is giving us a false value. So the else statement goes to the second part of the code and executes this. We also have this operator, which is basically greater or equal to and less than or equal to. So now, if we check if it's greater or equal to 15, and we execute the code, as you can see, it entered this case because it's meeting this condition. 15 is equal or greater than 15. As you can see, if we put a less than, it will also go inside this condition because it's less or equal than 15. Finally, our last comparison operator is not equal to, which is written like this, not equal to. This will only now execute if a is not equal to 15. We try to execute the code. You will see that it doesn't enter this scenario because a is equal to 15. If we now say, for example, a is equal to 7, as you can see, we're entering this part of the code. I wrote in a different way the first scenario where we saw the arithmetic operators, so you can see it easier. Now we are going to see the logical operators. In the logical operators, we have the following 4 cases, which are AND, OR, NOT, and SURE. We are going to see an example with these logical operators. So if, for example, we use if, and we say a equals 7, and now we want to check, for example, if b is, for example, greater than 2, so what we are saying here is that if a is equal to 7, enter this part of the code, where in this part of the code, if b is greater than 2, then execute whatever is inside here. Okay? But for example, this can be the same as doing and b greater than 2. What we are telling here, the if statement, is exactly the same as before. So if this condition is met and this condition is met, then do all this. If, for example, we now write that b must be, for example, greater than 5, then if we try to execute the code, this won't be executed, because it's true that we have a that is equal to 7, but b is not greater than 5. So because these two conditions are not being satisfied, this part of the code is not being executed. We can now apply the logic with the OR operator. So now if we execute the code, as you can see, it's entering here. Why? Because it's checking if this condition is met, or if this condition is met, do this stuff. In this case, this condition is met, while this one isn't. But because we just need one condition to be satisfied, that is why this code is being executed. The NOT operator negates the value of whatever is next to it. So for example, if we go back to the previous case, as you can see, and we try to execute, this condition is not being met. Why? Because this condition is being met, which gives us a true value. This condition is not being met, which gives us a false value. If we add here a NOT condition and we execute this code, as you can see, it's now entering here. Because what we are doing here is negative with negative is positive. Or you can say it in another way. What is the NOT operator checking is that if this is not true, then I'm meeting this condition. So this means that all this will be true. Finally, we have the SHOR operator. In the SHOR operator, let's say, for example, that we have now that both conditions are satisfied. If we execute this, as you can see, this part of the code is not being executed. Why? Because for the SHOR condition to be executed, it's a little bit different than the OR. In the OR condition, with at least one condition being true, it's enough for it to be executed. In the SHOR condition, one of the conditions must be at least false. So, for example, we set a equal to 5 and we execute the code, it will execute this part of the code. Finally, we have the concatenation operators. In the concatenation operators, we have this operator. And what does it do? Let's say, for example, we want to write a text, a string, sorry. For example, variable a is equal to, and now we want to show the value of a. A common mistake that a lot of people learning to program will do is try to add a string with this variable, with a, but a is a number. If we try to execute this code, Visual Basic will run into a runtime error 13, which is a type mismatch. This is telling us that you are trying to put together a string with a number. I can't do that. And as you can see, if we click the bug, it will tell us where the error is, that is actually here. To add together a string with a number, we use the concatenation operator. So now, if we execute the code, variable a is equal to 7. Funny enough, we have another concatenation operator that is like the arithmetic operator of addition. But you will normally just use this one, because the addition concatenator does exactly the same like this one. So for example, let's say we put now 7 as a string. We can add two strings together. They are the same type, as well as we can do the addition of two numbers, but the addition of two numbers will actually do the operation with 7 plus 3, while as with the string, it will just like put them one next to the other. But we get the same result if we use the other concatenator operator. So that's why, in my opinion, I think that with this one, you can basically add any type of string to anything you want without using the addition concatenator. And this could lead to errors. If, for example, suddenly you forget you are not using a string and you are using a number, as you can see, it will show the pop-up message of the syntax error number 13. Okay, so we have seen all the operators that are inside Visual Basic. Now, as you might guess, you can do now lots of stuff with the if statement and using the different operators that Visual Basic has. To make things a little bit more complicated, we're going to see a special scenario so you can see a little more about the logic of the if statement. Let's say we want to check if a is greater than 10 and b is greater or equal to 3, and now we're going to say or c is smaller than 7. Then do this. Okay, so this if statement is going to be a little more complicated. So now we're checking if a is greater than 10, that as we can see, this condition is not going to be met, and b is greater or equal than 2, which this condition is going to be met, but for this example we're going to put 5. So if we try to check this, technically this shouldn't be executed, but we have a third condition, or c is smaller than 7, which this condition is met. If we execute this code, as you can see, although this statement is not met, this or c is smaller than 7 is met. So this is why this is being executed. Now we are telling it that both three cases need to be true. So now the code here won't execute because at least one of them is not being true. Funny enough, the parentheses can be applied, for example, to operations. So if you do a times b minus c, as in mathematics, the code will first do the multiplication and then the subtraction. As you can see, our result is 16. 7 times 3 is 21, and minus 5 is 16. But if we do this first, and now we try to execute this, the result is minus 14. Because like in mathematics, we are now telling the code to first perform this operation, and then with the result, do the multiplication. Because b minus c is minus 2, multiplied by 7 is minus 14. It is important to notice that if you try and divide a number by 0, Microsoft Visual Basic will show a pop-up message saying runtime error 11, division by 0. There is no way you can divide by 0, so take this into account when programming any type of code. To finish off, we're going to see the select case statement. The select case statement works as the following. We do select case, and now we tell it the variable that we want to compare. In this case, we want to use a. Now we say, for example, in the case that it's 10, do something. In the case that it's, for example, 5, do something. And we need to finish off by putting nselect. So for example, if now we write at debug.print I am 10, and here we write I am 5, and now we change the value of a to 5, and we execute the code, you can see I am 5. And if we change this to 10, I am 10. Very easy. So you might be asking yourself, what's the difference between the select case and the if statement? Normally, the if statement is used when you want to compare about a range of parameters. Like for example, if a is greater than 10, you are trying to compare if a is, for example, 12, 15, 20. Whereas in the select case, you are comparing from very specific scenarios. In this case, you are doing, for example, if a is equal to 10 and if a is equal to 5, do this or that. That should be the scenarios where you use the select case or the if statement. You also might be asking yourself, yeah, but I can say, for example, if a equals to 10 and is the exact same thing as writing select case, case 10. Well, yeah, you're right. But at the end, the difference is that you have to write it as it's best for you. Normally, I would recommend that if you want to compare about a specific type of scenarios, you use the select case. If, for example, you are not 100% sure about the possible values that your variable can have, then use the if statement. Another little trick that you can do is that you can compare between ranges. So for example, case from 5 to 10, and case 3. I am 3, and this will be I'm between 5 and 10. So if we write 8, for example, I'm between 5 and 10, and if we write 3, I am 3. The select case statement will stop when one of the conditions is met, pretty similar to the if statement. If you want to gather all the other possible solutions that this evaluation might have, you can do the case else. So for example, if A is not between 5 and 10 and is not 3, well, you can put here something else. And now if I write, for example, 1, as you can see, this part is being executed. A little trick that you can do is that you can also evaluate the strings inside that select case. So for example, I want to evaluate if I'm between A and H, alphabetically. So let's say, for example, that my variable example here, so you don't get mixed up, is now, let's say, B. If we try to execute this, as you can see, it entered here because the letter B is between A and H. This works out well with the strings that contain more than one letter. So for example, airplane and house, and we are going to compare now, for example, ice cream. If I execute this, it will enter this condition because you have airplane, you have house, and if you check for the first letter, I is after the H, so it doesn't enter this condition. Let's put now, like for example, I have AB and I have AC. Sorry, let's say AA and AC. And now we put here AB, and we click play. Why does it enter this condition? Because it will check for the position of this letter. In this case, as you can see, they are both the same. So if we now check for this one, as you can see, B is between A and C. That's why it entered this condition. And you might be asking yourself now, can I do the same with the if condition? Well, yeah, you can do that. So if variable example is less than AC, then and if we now click play, as you can see, we enter this part of the code because this condition is true. To summarize, you have learned all the operators that are inside Visual Basic, which are the arithmetic operation, the comparison, the logical, and the concatenation operators. Also, you have learned how to use the if statement with the elseif, and as well, you have learned how to use the select case statement.